Holy giant legion of spiders, Batman! Tiki here, and I'm watching through Batman the Animated Series for the first time. And you know what? I thought that Sub-Zero was a really, really solid end to the Mr. Freeze arc. But I'm willing to give this epilogue a chance. After all, we had Toy Story 4. We didn't think we needed Toy Story 4, but look what happened there. I think most of us can agree that was a solid, worthy epilogue. But and I think I'm just watching along, and this episode's pretty good. It's kind of captivating me. I think Mr. Freeze has a good motivation. And what the hell is that? Dragon! Oh my God! You got to tell me why this is happening, Dragon. What the hell? Mr. Freeze and a spider head? Oh my God. Dragon, I can't go on without you.
You see, folks, long ago, I made a vow to educate Tiki in the ways of Batman the Animated Series, serving as his spirit guide to Gotham, in a way.
And tonight we're talking Cold Comfort, which, yeah, Dragon, obviously there's one major talking point about this episode.
Yeah, well, I think we'll build to that just the skosh, but pretty much, yeah. So there's
right.
Yeah.
I do think, Dragon, in all seriousness, I was worried going into this episode because I did think that Sub-Zero was a perfect ending to the Victor Freeze arc. I got to say, this episode isn't perfect. It's really not. But it's a solid enough continuation, and it clears up a few loose ends, so I like it. I don't love it. I think it's definitely the weakest of all the Mr. Freeze episodes, but it's still pretty damn solid. And I think, of course, the pathos of Freeze's actual plan is what really sticks out to me about this episode. The Giuseppe bit, Dragon. We'll get there.
So a little bit of context.
I can't paint another.
I cannot paint another.
All right, we'll get there.
We will. So a little bit of context for Cold Comfort, as you're probably wondering how the heck we get to kind of the stuff that happens in Cold Comfort. Well, so this is directed by Dan Riva, again, kind of the Dan Scanlon of the Batman staff, if you will. Man, he kind of worked his way up this season. He's done Holiday Nights, and from last season did Lock Up. Some solid episodes there. Writer on this, new writer. Writer from they pulled from Superman, Hilary J. Bader. So she worked on a little bit of Star Trek. She did some really good episodes from the Superman the Animated Series that they had done before New Adventures, and also she does a lot of the Batman tie-in comics. So yeah, that's kind of where she cut her teeth on Batman the Animated Series, and they kind of brought her in kind of mainly from that, along with kind of seeing it applied in kind of motion with Superman. So yeah. See, our studio on this, again kind of the old record gets played again here, folks. It's Coco and Dong Yang, which is kind of code this season for mainly Coco. Dong Yang's kind of like the jerseys hung up in the rafters. We're kind of in the Dong Yang Memorial Hall, but it's Coco's running the show.
Dong Yang in name only.
Pretty much, Dong Yang in name only, and maybe like a few staff members from Dong Yang with Team Coco. Pretty much, it's kind of like presumably, yeah. They had done Holiday Nights, and Sins of the Father this season. Again, per this new Coco kind of allegiance. So to keep it simple, so I don't know if it I don't know necessarily if they wanted to do Mr. Freeze again, or if it was mandated per them having Sub-Zero in the works, as the popularity of Mr. Freeze kind of being on people's minds. And again, this is still this is kind of around the time of Batman and Robin, so again, there's still kind of the delusion of we
sure,
like that, right?
Sure.
So the point, Mr. Freeze is on people's minds for a variety of reasons. And so whether it was mandated or not by the studio, hey, you're doing a new animated Batman, put Mr. Freeze in there. Whether they wanted to do that or not, I can't tell you. But what I can tell you is that they had a problem. The problem was, we did Sub-Zero, which had an amazing ending. Perfect ending for Mr. Freeze. Shed a tear, grab the inside-out tissues. You can't do any better than that. We're done here. Let's go. Okay. But
good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody. Exactly. So, how the heck do you go back to the well with Mr. Freeze without just doing a rehash, without just going back to the well? Well, what happened is he has no motive anymore after Sub-Zero, so they figured, okay, well, we gotta come up with a new motivation. So they figured, okay, well, Mr. Freeze is big defining things. He's dead to all emotions. So what if we did a literal removal of his humanity and separate him from Hope from the hope of being with Nora again, which is like the worst thing you can do to Mr. Freeze. It'll just take away the hope that he has, he always clung to about honoring his wife or being with his wife again. If we took that off the table, what kind of guy would Mr. Freeze be? So that's pretty much the premise they ran with for this episode, and the reinvention and the revamping. And of course, one of the most revamped characters stylistically. Well, second to another character we're going to get to soon. Not real soon, but soon.
Oh.
And lastly, the tie-in comics. So, of course, the tie-in comics I bring up from time to time because it's like a little fun thing. And short of like a Mad Love or a Holiday Nights, they've usually been kind of inconsequential. They've been like cool stories in the art style and like the universe. Like, oh, these. Why can't all the Batman comics be like this? This is quite fun. I love this. Before Scott Snyder comes along, mind you, but still. And basically, when the New Adventures comes around, they really tried to make the tie-in comics really count a little bit more, as in like you could really watch these as if they were episodes of the show, like Lost Adventures within the show. Gotcha. And the most pivotal of these tie-in comics were the Mr. Freeze story. The Mr. Freeze stories that basically follow what happens at the end of this episode all the way to his reappearance in Batman Beyond. It's kind of this beautiful kind of reconnection story between him and Nora trying to find each other through these tie-in stories. It's really beautiful. I love them. So it's kind of the best they ever hit with those tie-in comics. But so there's a little FYI, a little for your information. So all that said, you're all caught up. Let's jump into it.
Okie dokie. So we start at the Museum of Natural History from Batman and Robin.
Sure. So
of course, we have to bring up a new character.
Yes, we have Jack Ryder on the scene. Now I double-checked this. So Summer Gleason, she essentially will pop up in like 2 cameos in the background
Gotcha.
in the DC universe going forward, along with like once in she might have a line in Justice League once. So other than that, you're not gonna, Summer Gleason's been retired to feature this character, who I'm just gonna say file it away to you, because Jeff Bennett plays Jack Ryder, and they got Jeff Bennett for. Outside of him just being a good voice actor, they need a really good voice actor for what happens to Jack Ryder later on. So Jack Ryder's going to have a big story this season. We're going to get to that, but he's going to be basically our big go-to news guy. So you're going to be familiar. Oh, Jack Ryder.
So it's not just in the extended DC animated universe. It's specifically this season.
Yeah, it's this season.
Okay, cool.
This, the New Adventures show. I mean, here's the thing. If anyone wonders, we're just going to say this season because that's the way it's sold in the DVD sets and everything. And like anybody,
if we don't say this season, I'm going to get way too confused.
That's what I'm saying because it's 24 total, but it's like I think it was like let's not get held up on semantics. So the point being, it's really one season. So
Drago, what I love about this opening scene is it essentially legitimizes my favorite so bad it's good moment in all of Batman and Robin, which is of course what killed the dinosaurs, the Ice Age.
So Jack Ryder's on the scene. He's covering the results of Dr. Madsen's 30-year endeavor, which is finding the dinosaur bones of the Ultrasaurus.
This scene is like Alan Grant's worst nightmare, man.
That it is.
This is like the Velociraptor nightmare times 10.
I love there's this like line that she has like we brought it back to life, so to speak, which is really that's like inviting the villain to just show up right now, because again, just given his whole like coming being kind of being brought back, just being kind of a nightmare here. So we have these ladies in parkas, these we have these ice maidens, if you will, these ladies, these hench girls in parkas with icicle guns enter. They freeze as they see Mr. Freeze. Yeah, I wanted to say it just shoots the guy in the camera, which is really dangerous, by the way. Icicles on the camera, but just shows a little bit of danger there. So I don't love the hench girls. It just doesn't feel right. Mr. Freeze is giving them, even in Batman Robin, they give him that one.
I absolutely feel you. The one asterisk I'll give you is it's always nice to see Cree Summers, but other than that.
And Lauren Tom, both who come back in Batman Beyond, oddly enough.
Sure. But, other than the voice talent, I could pretty much leave these characters at the door. You're right, we don't really need them.
Absolutely.
All right. So yeah, of course, basically Freeze's whole philosophy here is that he's going to strike at the heart. He wants to attack, not necessarily, he's not in it for the money, he's in it here. And so in doing so, he just completely, like I said, Dragon, Alan Grant's worst nightmare, He just completely freezes over this these unearthed remains of this giant dinosaur, this fully fossilized dinosaur. It just shatters them. Just God, I could just see the Animaniacs version of Alan Grant just shedding a single tear. Just like, no.
It's really tragic here too. This woman spent 30 years of her life kind of finding this thing.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. It's definitely like, this is easily the best part of the episode for me is how like malicious Freeze is being with going after this kind of stuff.
And I love that Mr. Freeze here has sort of like a Thanos in Infinity War thing going on, where I love how he kind of has these moments of pleasantries before he crushes all the hope and takes away the dreams, where he compliments the finding just to kind of remind them of how much they love the thing. Right. Where he just says, like this, yes, it's beautiful, so sad you have to lose it. And of course, he goes on to, a doctor points out, no, you can't sell a stolen fossil. It's worth nothing to you, which is an excellent point. To me, no, but it's everything to you. I didn't come here to steal bones, Dr. Madsen. I came here to steal hope. And of course, the wonderful Michael Ansara, he comes back with Mr. Freeze, and we give him such great dialogue here with all these the anti-hope platitudes are just so fantastic. The way he just conveys them, just crushes the hope. We keep the Shakespearean quality of Mr. Freeze alive, and I love it.
Yeah, for sure.
So he frees the dinosaur, and why? Why not? So then we transition to the Gotham Tricentennial Gala. And again, we have a really sly Bruce, kind of Batman Gordon scene with Bruce Wayne hanging out with Jim Gordon, because Jim Gordon hates being at these high society parties, so he's always seeking out his pal Bruce Wayne.
Makes sense. Such a great little piece of continuity I like between the two.
Yeah. And while Kevin Conroy can't really go as kind of like as quote unquote himbo-esque, his kind of nicknames is like Himbo Bruce Wayne, just kind of like the more like like, oh well, welcome to the parties. Can't really play just like kind of the bon vivant playboy. He's playing it like an airhead playboy though, within the darker voice that he's using now. Because basically they tell him to take away kind of the comedy in Bruce Wayne, so we're kind of stripping that away. But we're keeping it alive in dialogue so far. Before we get too into the season here, says I heard Mr. Freeze and that lizard dinosaur, whatever. That's what I'm saying. I love that he's playing up the dumb billionaire thing though. Why is Mr. Freeze going around destroying bones? He just doesn't get it. Again, just trying to figure out what is Mr. Freeze's game. He's getting a little police intel while he's at the fancy party.
Mm-hmm. All right, so as Mayor Hill is about to introduce our favorite character of the episode, Dragon.
Yes, he's presenting this commissioned artwork by the city by esteemed artist Giuseppe Bianchi.
But as that's happening, one of Freeze's henchwomen runs past Bruce Wayne. Bruce Wayne, rightfully so, he knows what's up. He calls Alfred. He's saying, Alfred, I think I need to change.
Very good, sir. And of course, I love this bit. Alfred hits the glove box, and inside the glove box is the bat suit. Yes! That's awesome. Just love him bring the bat suit on the go, giving Alfred a little roll there, and then putting him in the driving outfit. I love when Alfred's in the driving outfit.
All right, so, Dragon, I swear to God, I want to see a whole movie about, or at least a whole episode about this Giuseppe guy. He's so compelling in the little screen time he gets.
So his painting, by the way, just to highlight it, it's Twilight in Gotham, which is a really nice. It's kind of like an expressionistic take on the Art Deco Gotham kind of cityscape, which is really cool. So Mr. Freeze crashes the unveiling, as Batman's kind of wise to in the moment here. Again, Freeze compliments the art, extraordinary technique. How long did it take you?
I feel like my life is just beginning. You have made the struggle worthwhile.
As he says before Mr. Happy gonna crash the party here. Just how long, again, his life's just beginning after he's put all his whole heart and soul into this thing. How long did it take you? 5 years, 10, a lifetime. And then poor Giuseppe here, here's the big line of the episode where he pleads with Mr. Freeze, gets in the way of his art before the hench girls take him out of the way or something. It's please, I'm too old to paint another.
Oh God, yeah, Drake. Like I said, that line alone just really, really captivates me.
That's what I'm saying. The episode captured the honest desperation of basically, this whole scene, this whole Act 1 set piece is all about showing, while people's lives aren't necessarily in jeopardy yet, there is a cost, there is a danger, and I mean, there's an impact that's definitely people's lives are being destroyed.
Sure.
and we got to show the menace of that. And we're doing in these really impactful little moments. They're kind of the victim effect of crime. We're seeing, the victimization, in its many forms. So he freezes the painting and it shatters. And of course, he addresses the room like, "Search your hearts for what you value most, then despair, for I have come to take it from you." It's like, oh, God.
Giuseppe is just like, he just falls to his knees, just sobbing.
Right. Well, that's coming up, but yeah.
No, he does it right as the painting gets destroyed.
You're right.
His knees.
Right. So anyway, then he aims. Mr. Freeze takes aim at this poodle, this lady with a poodle. Batarang comes and saves the dog. Freezes the champagne. Then we have this cool thing where the champagne explodes because all the the little shaky effect on the champagne and the little bubble effect, and it doesn't make sense really. No, but it's awesome. It's it's pseudoscience. I love it, man.
Tracking it happens in the Great Mouse Detective, so I'm fine with it.
All right. So basically, Batman, he evades the hench girl shooting the icicles at him. We have this some great stuff here where he's he tackles Mr. Freeze. Mr. Freeze just grabs him by the throat and tosses him across the room again. The enhanced strength of Mr. Freeze at play here. Batman, he grabs a pot and he deflects one of the girl's ice blast to freeze her in the leg, so he basically can go after Mr. Freeze. And we have this great bit. Batman's in the crosshairs of Mr. Freeze behind the stage. And he just has this great moment of asking, "Well, what are you waiting for?" And Mr. Freeze says, "Not this time. Not this way." A little foreshadow. Mr. Freeze has a plan for Batman for Act 3, but he can't quite enact it now, so he freezes his cape so he can't chase after him.
No capes!
Yep. Mr. Freeze gets away. He leaves the girl. Says, "Hey, I'm having a crisis here." And this is kind of a nod. This is kind of an nod to Heart of Ice. The big he leaves the one henchman behind that Batman then helps to kind of
sure.
Of course, we don't quite do that here. Basically, it's kind of a half-hearted nod to. It's kind of a half-Heart of Ice moment, if you will. So again, it's a bit of a cash-in sort of moment. It's yeah. So Mr. Freeze gets away. There's the moment that really struck me. This is a moment I know you're right. He is kind of collapsed. This is where we really linger on it. So Batman had this moment where Mayor Hill and Gordon are comforting the sobbing artist, holding the crumbled ice in his hands, and we have Batman and Gordon exchange a look, and that look conveys the whole point of the episode where. Again, lives are being destroyed here. Again, it's not truly, it's not true life or death stakes yet, but we got to stop this, man. This is bad.
Yeah, totally. So
we're in the Batcave. So appropriately, again, Batman and Batgirl, they know the usual behavior for Mr. Freeze post Sub-Zero because they both had really big roles in that movie. They know, what's Mr. Freeze's problem? We solved his problem. That movie. So, a little detail. I love we have this beautiful painting of kind of the big, because we couldn't reuse the footage because in the old animation style, they kind of did this beautiful painting, like a title card, essentially, of Victor Freeze from Heart of Ice, on Nora's chamber.
Uh-huh.
So, basically, we summarize a little expo here where we reveal that after she was revived, he never came to see her, which is kind of mysterious. Why Mr. Freeze? He never came to see her, and because of that, she got tired of waiting, and she married her doctor. And she left Gotham. And again, this is all explored in the tie-in comics, where there's this beautiful thing where Mr. Freeze, he doesn't obsess over it, he doesn't go after her and why didn't you stay with me or anything. None of that. He respects, he defends Nora.
I love that about it. Yeah, that is probably outside of the whole killing the art sort of thing. That's one of my favorite elements of the episode is just how mature Freeze. Well, not necessarily mature per se. He's doing something very malicious, but, on an emotional level, it's pretty mature how he handles it.
Sure. And again, this is stuff I know it's not in the episode, but again, this is kind of stuff that lays the track for the time we get in a Batman Beyond when he comes back again. But, it's just really cool. I just love the idea. I've always loved Victor Freeze and Nora's relationship has always fascinated me. Actually, I read a book recently they put out about it's a new story for Victor and Nora. That almost made me cry. It was beautiful. But yeah, so this is. I just like that we continue kind of the track that we're laying out here of that relationship and exploring it for. I love any opportunity we have to do that. All right. So importantly, we just say that he hasn't visited Nora, which is going to come back later. So Mr. Freeze, and we see Mr. Freeze being examined by some doctors in parkas in his lair, and they say that they've stabilized his condition, but they feel they deserve to be let free. They want out. They want to go. And Mr. Freeze, he kind of makes the point very sternly, no, you leave at my discretion, no sooner. So then the hench girls are asking who's the next target, and Mr. Freeze says someone important, someone who feels safe and secure, untouchable, which then leads to a clip playing, which, by the way, we've upgraded the color TV in the animated series with this clip here. It's a little fun, like going kind of from the 50s to the 60s in a sense.
Yeah, right.
Batman's donating to an orphanage, and he kind of quotes Thomas Wayne here, saying, my father always said those who have the most must give the most. And then Mr. Freeze comes in with the big tease here of, and those who have the most also have the most to lose, Mr. Wayne. Bum, bum, bum. All right, so we have Batgirl in you want to take us through some of this?
Yeah, sure. We have Batgirl, and basically what I could describe as the what's the X-Men equivalent?
Danger Room.
The Danger Room. Thank you. I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah.
And she's just kind of going through some obstacle courses, some apparently non-deadly laser beams. Sure, whatever.
I mean, again, it's like an impact sort of thing, you know. It's...
Right.
All right, so
it's all very impressive, architecturally speaking. Just very impressive American Ninja Warrior style setup in the Batcave.
They reused this in the Batman Vengeance video game, like back when the Batman games weren't quite. I mean, it was the best by comparison, but that really wasn't saying much for a while. But it was. You kind of reuse this little training simulation here. She's on like the balance beams and everything. She's on, I love the pressure point with the little laser. Like she has to punch the things that pop out of the floor. That'll, if she doesn't hit them in time, they're gonna hit her with like a little laser. So she gets hit by a laser, which means the test is over. She's arguing like, "Hey, I beat my score," and Batman says, "Yeah, not bad for a corpse. I did pretty good." And then we have this great line that just summarizes Batman: The New Adventures going forward here, where he says, "Dead is dead." Where the idea is that Batman is not cutting his new proteges any slack, which again is per the arc of Batman's getting a little darker and more protective in the DCAU, where he wants to make sure these guys are safe after, he doesn't want anything bad to happen to them. So he's got to make sure they're all good here. So Batgirl wants to call it a night. Batman says, "Good idea." She gives a little smile, which again, that's kind of the first hint at anything going on there.
And I don't like it. I don't like it at all.
I don't like it now. So far, it's nothing really. We haven't fully addressed it, but I'm just saying when you go back now, knowing where it goes, it's like, oh man, that's where it started.
Sure, yeah.
So and of course, Batman brushes it off though. He says, "For me, you need more practice." Turns out the difficulty level 10 because Batman just can't let anyone off easy. So then he's checking in on the other member of the Bat family. He's checking on good old Tim Drake. We love Tim Drake.
Everyone loves good old Tim Drake.
Seriously, scientific fact. Everyone loves Tim Drake. So Tim's watching some TV, and Bruce confronts him. Oh, by the way, Bruce went in the Batcave for the first time, just straight on.
I assume this is going to be something that's going to be like more regular going forward, right?
Yeah, I think the only time we ever saw was Bruce Wayne out of the costume in the cave was like the Two-Face nightmare. Like the only time. But outside of that, going forward, he's going to be regularly out of the suit in the Batcave.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So Bruce is confronting Tim about failing a civics test at school. And it's kind of nice to see kind of a Bat Dad in the works here. Okay, we get to see a little bit of Bat Dad action here. And again, the whole idea of...
Freeze is going to directly call out the Bat family of it all soon. So that's
I love how thematic that plays, too. Where, again, we're showing that the Bat family status quo is in action, which is something we never quite saw in the animated series. We didn't get to see him really kind of parent. He was more like brothers with Robin, the one we saw.
Sure.
And this is really kind of we're getting to the whole surrogate son of it all, big time in this episode, as we're nearing my favorite scene in the episode. We're getting close there. So Tim, let's see. So Tim doesn't know the value of the criminal justice system, and he says, "I know it's bogus. Why do
Where
I
you
care
get that brilliant observation from?"
Watching you, which is just hilarious, because as we go later on, as Alfred's answering the door and something bad's about to happen, we cut back to the conversation, and you don't. It's not like you follow due process, and just Batman does not have an answer. Just kind of looks up all sheepishly. How'd you do in your math test? What's he going to say to that? Whoever the escape artist, it's not his best escape, but it's like, what is he going to say to that? I mean, yeah, I don't follow due process.
That exit via math.
Yep. No one wants to follow him there.
Math.
Exactly.
All right.
All right, so again, they're intruders in Wayne Manor. As we get to my favorite scene of the episode, Mr. Freeze is in Wayne Manor. Now, before we go any further, Teague, I want to ask you this because we kind of glossed over it. What do you think about Mr. Freeze's new redesign?
I mean, I honestly don't mind it, Dragon, and of course it makes sense because of the context of it. It's more sleek, it's more kind of futuristic, and given what we know, and like I said, obviously it makes sense. I honestly think it's probably one of the least offensive based on everything that I know of the redesigns.
I think you're right. It's, I mean, basically, it doesn't occur to you on the first, just getting a glimpse at it. But again, as you said, Teague, in context, the change in the suit makes all the sense in the world because it's not the same suit from before. Because that was a suit, this is a little something more.
Right.
But the eyes thing still bugs me, man. Like, I
don't think the eye thing is nearly as bad as we have it with the Joker, though.
Sure, but I'm just saying, like, I always loved the red goggles and he's given, like, these red pupils. And, it just looks kind of, I don't know, it's looked...
But dragons are like the devil's eyes. Doll's eyes.
Well, I don't know about doll's eyes, because doll's eyes are supposed to be black, but yes.
Well, still, it's kind of like the emotionless element of it, I think, is what they were going for.
You're right, that's what they're pushing for
yeah.
Sure. Okay, anyway, so favorite scene of the episode here. So Mr. Freeze is in Wayne Manor. He freezes the stairs and he kicks poor Alfred down the stairs. And, like, I love Bruce Wayne. It's like Alfred just goes to help Alfred up. And then Mr. Freeze, oh my God, Michael Ansara is one of his fine. He has two honey of a scene in the episode. He's great throughout all of this, but he has two wonderful scenes in this episode. This is the first one where he says, a touching scene. I'd be moved if I were capable of it. And does that menacing slide, just slides down. So we have this great moment of Bruce Wayne trying to reach Mr. Freeze, and I love this considering all the Sub-Zero or Wayne Enterprise.
Absolutely. It's kind of like one of the ultimate, like, Bruce Wayne and Batman kind of like their lives colliding almost.
And I love how it reflects Heart of Ice, where in Heart of Ice, Batman made this plea to Mr. Freeze, where, he made the whole thing, I saw what happened to your wife, I'm sorry. They had that moment together. Now we're giving Bruce Wayne kind of a similar thing through Nora, where, it's like, Wayne Enterprises helped save your wife's life. We can help you too. And of course, Mr. Freeze saying, it's too late for that. I always love Conroy delivering, like, just this honest, like, why? He just doesn't get, like, why? Why is it that way? Like, why? I have people working for me who can, and then of course, bam, he gets kind of pistol whipped by the cold gun. Batman in an instant here, Bruce, he activates the alarm on his watch without hesitation. Like, okay, I tried that. Hitting the button. So now, as Batgirl's going to be entering our scene soon, Mr. Freeze, this is the menacing thing. It's like Bruce Wayne's worst nightmare going on here. A bad guy's in Wayne Manor threatening his new surrogate families. Mr. Freeze calls him out on here, where he looks at this photo of the Waynes, and he says, you were just a boy when you lost your family, but you keep trying to create a surrogate family for yourself. To destroy you, I have only to destroy that. So he maybe your surrogate son, as he points the gun at Tim Drake. And again, you feel, oh, no, not Tim Drake. No. There's this powerful bit of Bruce shielding Tim Drake, much like his father tried to shield him back. And that always got me. Like, he shields Tim Drake, the protective instinct. But basically, it's such a dramatic distillation of Batman's mission in one moment, where never more do I want to put a kid in this situation. And my God, it's on my doorstep right now. Batman, while he's building a family, he's opened himself up to a big new weakness. He's got family now. It's not good for him.
Sure.
Says, no, the surrogate father, which has always been Batman's biggest weakness, Alfred. I mean, his biggest strength, but also his biggest weakness. And, of course, this moment always got me, no, not Alfred. He's freezing Alfred. Very harrowing and a very personal thing to do to Batman. Alfred's being frozen from the neck down practically, and thankfully, nick of time, Batgirl arrives before Alfred's frozen from the head up.
Really cool silhouette. I love that shot.
Yeah. She takes on the hench girls and Mr. Freeze. Tim Drake goes into action. He's taking on one of the hench girls too, and Alfred's on. This one's for Alfred. And one of the girls bumps into Bruce Wayne, who little does she know who that guy is, so he takes care of her rather easily. So let's see. So then Batgirl, she's evading like cold beams. She disarms the cold gun and uses it to freeze Mr. Freeze to the wall. A little bit of that the police commissioner's daughter training in action. I don't know if Batman would use the cold gun, but she does.
Right.
So then he basically breaks free, and he uses his enhanced robotic strength to break down the wall and escape. Batgirl goes after him. She can't catch him. What she does, she fires a bat tracer on the really poorly revamped design of Mr. Freeze's awesome van.
All right, that I will give you. That design is not great.
It's just so bland. It's just a regular van. I mean, you can see it's supposed to be the same one. They took all the interesting stuff, all the interesting details out, man.
Uh-huh.
Even Schumacher used the Freeze van. It looked better than that. Come on. Right. So Bruce tends to a freezing Alfred. So then again, really dramatic act breaks. That's the end of Act 2.
All right, so meanwhile, Alfred's getting a bath, and it's a very, very pleasant bath.
Yeah, I gotta tell you, this is gonna sound all hokey as all get out, but I love giving Alfred a break, man. Just after all he does,
totally.
And it's like he's getting. Of course, we've upgraded in the years that have passed. We've upgraded the chemical bath. We've gone from kind of like the whole bath to the tank from Heart of Ice to a soothing little chemical tub, a little soothing chemical jacuzzi for Alfred. It's not at all unpleasant. Well, good, you have to stay there for a while. So, Batgirl's apologizing for letting Freeze get away, and Batman says, well, no, we all underestimate him. Don't worry about it. Not a full-on, like, hey, no, don't worry about it. It's like, we all underestimate him. Just kind of, again, more of a brush-off than anything, but that's just Batman. So let's see, Batman and Batgirl, they're off... they have a lead on Mr. Freeze because of the tracking device. They're going to go after that. Tim Drake wants to come along, but again, kind of where we're at right now with Robin, we're trying to keep him, kind of trying to get him ready to go into the field, so he's not quite field ready yet. But he's told to keep Alfred content. So he's told to keep Alfred company, help Alfred out. And of course, Alfred's like, no, I'm quite content here by myself, except perhaps
a spot of tea
with honey and lemon. And, some of those lovely little tea cookies. And you know what? You got the honor to get Alfred some little tea cookies, man. It's just like after everything we do for Alfred, I just like, yes, Alfred, I'm going to get you those cookies, man. You take it easy. Let me get those. How can you not? I mean, after everything he's put into it. It's like, Alfred deserves to be weighed on. There's Mother's Day, there's Father's Day, there's also Alfred's Day, man. Let's put it on the calendar. Okay. So, Batman and Batgirl, they find the entrance, to Freeze's lair inside a meatpacking plant, which is quite appropriate given the whole refrigeration aspect of it. Let's see. So they go down to the lair. Batgirl finds a Freeze suit, but oddly enough, no Mr. Freeze.
Egads, how could that be? Freeze needs the Freeze suit.
So they're figuring, again, an understandable deduction. Maybe it's a spare suit. So they find the doctors that are kind of these poor doctors, man. They're in parkas. They're kept in like the meat.
They're up on the meat hooks.
Yeah, they're up on the meat hooks, muffled. So the Batman finds them before the doctors can tell him what the deal is, why Mr. Freeze kidnapped him. The hench girls find him. They call it a Freeze, and then we have the big reveal.
Oh God! All right. So, John Peters must have really loved this dragon, and I'm not entirely convinced that this isn't a John Peters reference, in all honesty. Just Mr. Freeze's head on a mechanical spider body.
Okay, so again, of course, the Superman lives of it all. Again, Kevin Smith, I don't know how long he's visited the DC offices. He's been to the Warner Brothers stories. The story definitely got around. He's friends with Paul Dini. Paul Dini probably heard about the John Peters story. Entirely possible. Right. Entirely possible, and at the very least, that's going on around the time this episode's made, like a year before. I mean, presumably, it might time out to be exactly
the timeline tracks, Dragon. That's all I'm saying.
The timeline tracks, but the other possible explanation for why a spider body is this: Mr. Freeze was originally designed by the great, by the great Mike Mignola, the guy who created Hellboy.
Yeah.
And of course, Mignola, he's done some comics, and one of his comics is the Amazing Screw-On Headman. So he's done a lot of things with decapitated heads.
Oh God!
So it's possible the spider legs. I don't get the spider legs. That's a thing that has to be a John Peters thing at the very least. They get the whole making Mr. Freeze, kind of a disembodied head. I mean, also I think the logic of like why make him a disembodied head is the whole cryogenics of it. Well, of course, you look at Futurama, we have like the cut off heads, or you look at the you look at that, we have the cut off heads, or you look at basically the theory and the whole stupid rumor of Walt Disney of cryogenic heads. The idea being we want the identity of the person to endure, therefore the head is the important part. Again, like the theoretical nature of cryogenics before we actually apply it practically. It's all That's kind of where they're getting the whole decapitated head thing, I'd imagine. Right. So we learned that the accident that created Mr. Freeze took its toll, and the doctors they stopped further deterioration, but by the time they stopped it, just the head. And of course, he sees the irony of all I've done to preserve my wife's body, and now I'm left, I'm left just the head myself.
Uh-huh.
And again, we now understand why it was too late to save him, and why he can never be with Nora. Which again, how much more tragic can it get for poor Mr.
Oh my God, it's ridiculous, Dragon. It really is. It's just like they really just heap on the Shakespearean qualities to him.
Obviously, I think I prefer Mr. Freeze with a body, but I do appreciate the literalization of Mr. Freeze losing his humanity with this. And again, and this gives us a Mr. Freeze without hope or a cause, and that he can't go back. And this basically the arc of Mr. Freeze here is that Mr. Freeze has become like the rest of the Batman rogues. He basically he's just out to, he has a tragic origin, and now he's just a criminal.
Which of course, that's the big tragic thing, because Batman, Mr. Freeze was always like one of the more hopeful cases for Batman,
Which sets the tone perfectly for this season, where Batman, we're eliminating the hope from Batman's world in a lot of these guys, where we're draining the hope of the potentially things getting better in Gotham and things going well for Batman. So this Mr. Freeze thing, it is quite the blow on all fronts for sure. All right, let's see. So, but however, while that's said, there's like a little twinge of humanity here. Mr. Freeze lets the scientists go. He lets the doctors go before I change my mind. It gets like a little twinge,
Sure.
Also, we see the cool thing where the robot head goes inside the robot Freeze suit, which is awesome.
So I mean, cool. Dragon, I gotta say, conceptually, I really have nothing wrong with the robot head.
I mean, again, it's cool. It's just, I mean, I don't know. Again, it's nothing necessarily wrong with it. It's just really different. It's something to get used to, I guess.
Oh.
So Batgirl's like, I guess we're next. He goes, oh, very funny, Batgirl. You're not going anywhere. As Mr. Freeze explains his plan here, where he wants to make the way he's going to make Batman suffer is to have him watch as he takes the city away from him by freezing it with a reverse fusion bomb. And we have the red eyes sequence where we go inside Mr. Freeze's creepy red eyes. And we demonstrate him freezing the city and all the people in the city, and he has this great line like, blanketing the city in white, silent death. You'll be safe because I want him alive. I want to see his despair, which, oh my God.
So it's pretty much a better version of Bane's plan from The Dark Knight Rises?
Oh, not in so many words, but yeah.
I'm just saying.
No, you're not wrong. It's pretty much. So let's see. So as the Mr. Freeze boards this kind of cool looking helicopter, and this kind of his helicarrier, it goes off. Batgirl has this awesome bit where she fires a tracer at the girl's head, at one of the hench girls' heads, just to kind of get the drop on them, which is just really cool. And this makes sense if you have like a little launcher there to use and what's available to you, like bam, right in the head. Batman knocks one of them out. Batgirl's got it handled from here. Batman, he kind of has like a last-minute grapple onto the said helicopter, and we can then begin our Captain America First Avenger-esque climax.
All right, so yeah, basically just a bunch of helicarrier action here.
Yeah, we have like the cool jump scare bit where Mr. Freeze's head turns around 360 degrees.
Right. That's great.
Then he punches Batman. Again, the power of Mr. Freeze gets really demonstrated in this fight, where Batman's really in an uphill battle right now, where he has he punches him, which is a failed punch, and then he gets tossed into a windshield. And again, despite being on Kids WB, we can get away with this somehow. Batman's bleeding, which we haven't done we haven't done since almost technically since Phantasm, but I mean Phantasm almost got him. Depending on your preference. So, Mr. Freeze, as much as I want you to see this, much as I want you to see your city frozen and lifeless, I'm prepared to end it all now. So what Batman does here, he hits the yoke. So basically the helicopter's going up. Mr. Freeze falls back. Batman's steering it over the bay again, Dark Knight Rises style. As you tend to do. Before Mr. Freeze, he grabs Batman, he's about to toss him out the window. Before he does that, Batman, he grapples the back of Mr. Freeze to the bomb. He attaches Mr. Freeze to the bomb via the grappling gun, and opens the bomb bay doors. So yeah, I'm not crazy about this. Just to say it, I'm not crazy about it.
Yeah. I think this is probably one of the, I don't want to say one of the weaker parts of the episode, but definitely one of the more divisive parts of the episode.
I mean, look, the way I can live with it is just looking at the facts that Batman, as we know here and with Grant Walker from like the last Deep Freeze episode, Mr. Freeze, we know these guys are pretty much immortal. Batman knows this. He knows. I mean, look, the leap is that maybe Batman knows exactly how this bomb is going to freeze. That's the leap I have to go with, just for the sake of Batman being Batman.
Sure.
That he knows that he's going to freeze like a giant iceberg, like Grant Walker's going to excavate the head out later. So he knows he's going to be fine, but little does he know the head's not going to be there. So that's the logic there. Otherwise, yeah, it's because Batman says, I think it's the last we've seen of Mr. Freeze. Again, new adventures for you. It's not always a slam dunk, but I'll take the assumption.
Well, Dragon, at the very least, it's not Batfleck.
True, and again, more importantly, though, we know Mr. Freeze lives, so either way, it's
right, yeah, sure.
Anyway, so we revealed the head is missing at the end of the episode, which basically sets up more of the tie-in comics, and/or basically, if you never read any of those, we see him, we find that head in Batman Beyond.
Mm-hmm. All right. So that's the episode. Final thoughts, Dragon. I mean, overall, I think this is a very solid continuation. I think Toy Story 4. It need it, not necessarily, but it does put some things with Freeze's character arc into kind of like into an ultimate sort of crystallized form. And like I said, I think the strongest point of the episode really is the Act 1 stuff. The Giuseppe stuff especially is just really damn captivating for some reason. I don't know why. It's just that guy is just like one of those randomly really memorable one-off characters. But yeah, overall, I quite liked it. I don't think it's nearly as bad as, or not bad, but I don't think it's nearly as unnecessary as I was kind of expecting it to be. Pretty solid overall. Definitely the spider robot head makes it memorable.
Certainly. Okay, so for me, again, look, I'm always still a little divided on this one. It's solid, don't get me wrong. It's solid, more solid than I remember. I'll give it points there. But again, kind of lacks like the gravitas and the power of the Mr. Freeze trilogy, which is a really hard trilogy to beat, by the way. So up those episodes and Sub-Zero. I mean, not every day can compete with Heart of Ice, and let's be honest. Again, the spider head has always been, it's a bit much, but it's cool. You can't beat that. It's a really cool idea. I mean, it's a bit much, but I mean, much like, again, this is much like how Heart of Ice reflects the tone of Batman the Animated Series. I think this episode reflects the tone of the new Batman adventures, where it's this one, and the way it reflects the show is that, yeah, it's a little revamp heavy. We had pathos and we had great animation, but also with a darker tone. Again, the hopelessness factor here, which is Mr. Freeze's whole new modus operandi, where this episode is about how someone responds to loss and hopelessness. Mr. Freeze destroys as Batman attempts to rebuild with his family. Batman's attempting to rebuild in the face of his loss, and Mr. Freeze he's kind of like, if I can't be happy, no one can be happy. It's kind of his response to said trauma and said loss. So look, at the end of it, even if I can't give this episode full points with the Freeze legacy of it all at play, or like maybe gripes maybe here and there, it's that I can absolutely enjoy the symbolism, enjoy the cool things about this episode and the aftermath of tie-in books, and again, all the roads lead to the Batman Beyond Mr. Freeze, which I feel is the better epilogue, which we'll get there someday. So yeah.
All right. All right, take us out, Dragon. Dozier us.
A dummy, no more. Arnold Wesker on the mend, a supernatural Scarface. Can Batman get to the bottom of this mystery? Will the ventriloquist relapse? Tune in next time to find out. Same animated bat time, same animated bat place.
On the next visit to the animated Batcave with Double Talk. I cannot beat another.